Moving on to our next review of the show, we have the winner of our next Pride Month poll with Love, Simon. Now, Love, Simon is the film directed by Greg Berlanti, starring Nick Robinson, Catherine Langford, Alexandra Shipp, and George Leningborg Jr. as a film about Simon, a gay teen in the closet struggling with the complications of coming out. And something that I think separates this from a lot of LGBTQ films, especially for the time it came out, because this came out in, I think, 2018, because a lot of LGBT films were inherently rooted in tragedy. It was like that was even a line in The Last of Us episode 3. It was like, yeah, this is not the tragedy at the end of the play, and it was nice at the time, especially to see a movie that was as schmaltzy as it is, because at its core, I think Love, Simon is playing tribute to the films of John Hughes about this being a very straightforward coming of age story, one that is told with a lot of heart.
Yeah, many could even argue easily that this was a very much inspired by John Hughes in this type of like rom-com comedy, but coming of age dramedy.
Yeah, and it's something that I think this movie does well is, especially because you know, especially in the film, there is that conversation of Simon basically has the perfect life, the perfect circumstances to come out. He has very, very liberal parents. His dad is, you know, as hot as he is, played by Josh Duhamel, and as emotionally sensitive as he is. It's still a terrifying thing to announce what you are to the world. And it is a very, very scary thing, especially if you're in that circumstance, especially is like, for as scary as it is in this film, this is a positive story, which doesn't often happen.
Yeah, this movie is rounded off by a lot of solid character actors as well. Recently, Catherine Langford as Leia Burke, one of his best friends, she's known mainly significantly from her introduction in 13th Reasons Why, where she earned herself a Golden Globe Award nomination. Then later, not too long in the same year, within Pure and Love, Simon, and then later in Knives Out. Yeah, I think honestly, Simon played by Nick Robinson, who also does a good job of playing a guy just kind of being just like a normal everyday guy who just happens to be gay and having very supporting parents, a little sister, and just all this other stuff. And then he just gets caught in this weird 16 candles / weird Breakfast Club situation where it's okay, I have this bond with this one person, but really alias is, how am I going to search a needle in a haystack and find this character? And it could have worked for anyone else. And a secret comes out. Oh no, how is he going to deal with that? And I think
and something that I think adds a little bit to the teen romance dynamic of this is this initial anonymous correspondence between Blue, which is the this kid that Simon finds in this like online forum as this other closeted gay kid at his high school. And, you know, they initially start talking through email, and this other very obnoxious theater kid blackmails him into trying to hook up with Alexandra Shipp. And if you don't help me, I'm going to out you, which is terrifying in and of itself. And, you know, when push comes to shove, this kid outs him. And Simon is a better person than me because I would have killed him.
Yeah, Simon, I think what makes him, I think the way Nick Robertson does, I think what makes him kind of the charm that he has is he plays this guy who is able to have like a little bit of maturity, but still be that younger teen where he's like full of emotion, but he's also trying to think about it logically. How am I going to get through this? How am I going to figure this out? and so it kind of bounces back and forth, and he does have moments where he does break down. He does have moments
Mhm.
where he's frustrated, and when it does come to light, he is terrified, he is
Mhm.
horrified, he's angry, but he does also take the higher road in a lot of which
Mhm.
you admire in someone like that, especially for a protagonist. I think
Mhm.
that's what ultimately works about this movie. If we really have to sum up
Mhm.
with this movie's not going to win any awards for being like it introduced something grand and new or did something different. I think what this movie does better than I think some of its peers, both at the time, even now, is him being gay is just a part of the character, and it's not forced down the throat. Even if it is part of the story, it's ultimately about him just trying to confront who he is and just
Mhm.
trying to live a good life and manage it with his friends and trying to help them out and trying to work with them. And
Mhm.
I think that's ultimately what makes it succeed. It is a positive movie without being overly positive.
Mhm.
It's a movie that just allows itself to be a movie that just happens to have a gay main character,
Mhm.
and I think that's what I think makes it more memorable now than it did when it came out. Weirdly enough,
Yeah, I remember when it came out. It
like it had
came out to
positives.
it had great fanfare, but I don't think it even did that well at the box office.
It did
Yeah.
all right, if I recall. It for a budget of only 10 to 17 million, it did make back 66 million at the box office. So it's not amazing, but it did make back, and it did immediately start having a cult following, not just for the fact that the
Mhm.
main character was gay, but also just
Mhm.
that it was a solid homage to John Hughes movies while doing its own thing. I would argue
Yeah.
it's still not as maybe good as the
Mhm.
classic Hughes movies he made, but hey, one of the most sincerest forms of flattery is
Yeah.
imitation.
Yeah, the sincerest form of flattery is imitation, and even now it has one of my favorite comedic scenes possible, pointing out the kind of absurd double standard of LGBT kids having to go through the whole process of coming out.
Mm.
Maybe it's because it doesn't seem fair that only gay people have to come out. Why is straight the default?
I have something I need to tell you.
Mom, there's something I have to tell you.
Can we talk?
Yeah,
I'm straight.
I'm straight. I'm sorry, Mom. It's true.
I like girls.
I like men.
You get that from your dad.
Mm.
I'm in love with Nick.
I feel like I've been raised in the street.
Absolutely, you have.
I'm heterosexual.
It's all you get that from your daddy's side.
Yeah, I appreciate the spoof there. That does make it funny,
Mhm.
but there is, yeah. I mean, unfortunately, when the population is of one
Mhm.
mass aspect,
Mhm.
something is going to be seen as different, and it's going to be more difficult to
Mhm.
appear different or unique or whatever you want to call it, however you wish to call it.
Mhm.
But I think the movie has a good kind of knowing what it is and a
Mhm.
self under like almost almost a an ironic comedy to itself. Like it's like, look, we know this
Mhm.
is what it is. We know you know what it is, so let's kind of play with it.
Mhm.
We've because we've been watching John Hugh movies for the last 40 years. So we kind
Mhm.
of already know this. So let's kind of play with it a little bit. And it throws its own unique spins in there that does add levity to a
Mhm.
normally could have been an overly positive or overly cheesy movie. And it's just enough
Mhm.
grounding to kind of come out. It's just a movie on its own.
Mhm.
And I think that that in itself is, I think, an accomplishment.
Yeah, on its own, I think it's just a very solid romantic comedy.
Yeah.
It's very light, it's very fun to watch, and it's grounded and it kind of elevates itself above other rom-coms just through its performances. You have
Hmm.
very, very talented young actors like Nick Robinson, like Catherine Langford, like Kean Lonsdale, who the director Greg Berlanti worked with on The Flash. He played Wally
Hmm.
West on that show, and they I think elevate this above a lot of young adult fiction, especially in Hollywood.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. The cast really does, and the cast chemistry between each other, the way they bounce off of each other. I think you should give a special praise to that for the casting and the able to perform the characters. But yeah, I think overall this is a fairly solid film, and for a certain audience, a really enjoyable film. More than the so in its on its own terms. Uh, yeah, I honestly don't have much too else to say about this one, but it's a solid rom com for what it is. Doesn't break any big records, but if you want to watch something a little different, or you have a friend that is more interested in this kind of stuff, this isn't a bad pick at all. You could do far worse.
Yeah, there are way worse LGBTQ movies to watch,
Oh
and
my god, are
this is
there?
this is a very solid, very fun one to watch. And if I had to give a rating for it, I would give this a very low tune in. I enjoyed my time with it, but it doesn't really elevate a lot
Yeah.
with the genre of teen rom coms.
Yeah, if I had to rate it, I think I would give it like a high stream it. This is a perfect movie. You can just kick back, watch, and and just kind of know what you're getting and be kind of satisfied with it for what it tries to be. It doesn't try to be anything more than what it is, and that's perfectly fine too.
Yeah. All right, and that is our show, everybody. Well, before we take off, let's give a very quick rest in power to the great John Romita Sr., who given us so many iconic characters, iconic comic book characters. He's a artist who gave us so many iconic things, especially with Spider-Man. Some iconic panels that we've seen adapted in stuff like Spectacular Spider-Man. A lot of that is owed to him.
Yeah. No, whenever an artist like that kind of passes away, the many different iconographies, especially when Spider-Man and Mary Jane finally married, that panel, everyone's showing up to that. He's just a lot of good angles and use of angles. A lot of stuff actually that we don't really use anymore that I think they should bring back. In one of the more famous panels, the Spider-Man suit in the trash can as he's walking away in the rain that that Sam Raimi used for Spider-Man 2, directly ripping it. It's clearly a lot of homage and a lot of love for this artist, and he will be sorely missed.
Yep, the world's worse off without him. But that is our show, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the Afternoon Tune. Dusk, where would you like them to find you?
Oh, they can always find me here on Fridays, my friend.
Well, if you like the show, if you want to follow us, you can follow us on all the social media: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube at the Afternoon Tune. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Letterboxd at Night and Day Nick. Thank you for tuning into the show. And as always, stay tuned.
Tuned.